Grove Kids, it's Amy. I'm here with another story from the It's All About Jesus Storybook Bible. Are you ready to get started? Feel free to pause at any time. Let's remember that the Bible is in two main parts, the Old Testament and the New Testament. The first book of the Old Testament is called Genesis. We're still in Genesis. Let's hear a story about another promise that God made. And nobody knew what it really meant for thousands of years. Are you ready? God's covenant with Abraham. Genesis 12 and a lot of other places, including 17. Abram lived with his wife, Sarai. God chose Abram and told him to move to a place he had never seen before. God promised Abraham three things: a large family, land for his family, and his blessing. God visited Abraham in a vision and said, "Do not be afraid, Abraham. I am your shield. Your reward will be very great." This was a good promise. But Abraham was sad. He didn't have any children to inherit his blessing. "One of my slaves will be my heir," Abraham said. But God had a better plan. He took Abraham outside to remind him of his promise. "Look at the stars of the sky and count them, if you can," God said. Abraham couldn't count the stars. There were too many. "Your family will be that numerous," God said. "You'll have that many children." Abraham believed God, so God was pleased with him. God also promised that Abram's family would keep the land they were living in. Abram asked, "How can I be sure?" So God confirmed his covenant with Abraham. There's Abram talking to God. God told Abram to bring 5 animals: a cow, a goat, a ram, a turtle dove, and a pigeon. Abram did what God said, and so he divided up the animals. Then, when the sun was setting, a deep sleep came over him. While Abram slept, God told him what would happen in the future. He said that Abram's family would be slaves in another country for 400 years. Then God would judge that nation and bless Abram's family. Even though these things would happen, Abram would have a long, peaceful life. When it was dark, a smoking fire pot and a flaming torch representing God passed between the divided animals. So like they're laying out, cut in half, and then the torch and the smoking fire pot went in between them as a sign of the promise that God was making. This showed that God would be responsible for keeping his promise. Many years passed, and Abram still didn't have the promised son. God hadn't forgotten, though. He appeared to Abram again and reminded him, "I am God Almighty. I will establish my covenant between me and you, and I will multiply you greatly." God was so serious about his promise that he changed Abram's name to Abraham. Abraham means father of a great multitude. God told Abraham that he would be the father of nations and kings. God said, "I will keep my promise to you, and it will last forever. I will be your God, and I will be the God of your family, everyone who comes after you." And he said, "I will use your family to bless every nation on the earth." God repeated his promise to give Abraham, his offspring, all the land of Canaan where they were living. "You will own this land forever," he said. All right. are some questions. Abraham's obedience to leave his home blessed the world. How did Jesus' similar obedience bless the world in a bigger way? All right. I have a question too. What did Abraham do that made God happy with him? All right. Christ connection. You want to know the answer to the what made God happy? It was trusting God. Christ connection. God called Abraham to leave his country and family to go to another land. God promised to bless all the world, every nation, every type of people, through Abraham. God sent Jesus from his home in heaven to be born on earth into Abraham's family. Through Jesus, all nations of the earth are blessed. Have a great day.